Right. So welcome to our Women of Color Wealth Wisdom Week. I'm so delighted that you're here, that you're here because this called to you. You're in the right place because you probably deeply understand that it's through our diversity that we are all stronger as women. And the intention of this series is really all about sharing our wisdom, and holding an intention that we can all elevate our conversation around wealth and around leadership, and that we can all expand past our glass ceilings together. So let's link up to Rise Up. We're going to dive right in. I just want to presence that a little bit before I lit a candle, just to kind of symbolize a sense of weaving spirit, weaving the sacred into this conversation. And also just kind of dropping in and being present and coming with fullest presence, highest intentions and prayers to this conversation. So if you feel called to light a candle, just to give yourself that sense of really stepping into the container with us, feel free to do that. And I'm going to go ahead and just set my candle back here. I'm Jessica Hadari. I'm your host this week, and I'm delighted to be really just here to spotlight the wisdom of these incredible women who are here with us today. So I'll just call on each of you, and you can each just briefly, unmute yourself and just tell us a little bit about yourself, whatever it is that you want to share. So Dr. Vera, we'll start with you.
Okay, can you hear me? Awesome. Hey, everybody. I'm Dr. Baron Singleton, and I'm a naturopathic doctor based in Lafayette, California, in the Bay Area. And what I do is help busy women who are just juggling way too much in their life, and they're starting to experience body symptoms, mental, physical, and emotional symptoms of being overstressed and burned out. I've been in practice for well over 8 years. I've seen incredible women come through my practice, and Jessica, thank you for holding this space for women to just come and get fed with love and knowledge. And I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm thrilled for everyone who's going to join us all this week to just participate and accept all the knowledge and wisdom being poured into you. This is tremendous. This is a love project, and I'm excited to be a part of this because this is right in alignment with helping women to up-level themselves when it's hitting the fan, with the shit's hitting the
fan. Thank you so much, Dr. Vera. It's such a pleasure to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you.
Kimberly Sherry.
Welcome. I am Kimberly Sherry, and I'm a frequency alchemist, international energy healer. And I really help women, especially, it's my favorites, to help them step into their power. Women are going through a whole metamorphosis right now, and this is really a big challenge, stepping away from that masculine, pushing, driving, chasing model, and really becoming more magnetic so that everything they desire comes to them. I'm in the process of finishing up a book that's on its third edit called Access Your Ultimate Power, the Blueprint to Infinite Intelligence. So everything I'm going to be talking about will be outlined in there.
Gorgeous. Thank you, Kimberly. So nice to have you here. Valencia Ray, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, hello everyone, and I am very excited to be here also. I am a medical doctor, a functional medicine physician. I transitioned from the traditional system over time and retrained as a functional medicine physician. So I enjoy working with people in general, but most of my clients are women, and I work with them to help them to lose weight easier and to reverse chronic medical, hormonal, and stress-related conditions using holistic science-based approaches. And for me, most of my life has been getting here. This whole idea for me, I'm focusing on, especially since I've been in the whole functional medicine realm, I have a new respect for stress and how deadly it is. I was an eye surgeon even at one time, and I was very driven, had a lot of stress, had burned out adrenals, and et cetera. And fortunately for me, I generally was able to navigate that without a whole host of health problems. But when I started having symptoms, et cetera, I couldn't find anything in the regular system and went into functional medicine. I've come to really honor and respect both sides of our brain, our head, our heart, the yin, the yang, the whole balance is really, really important, because if we don't get that part straight and we burn ourselves out, obviously, not only will it be hurt our leadership and wealth perspective, but we won't have the life that we came here to live. So I'm really here about helping people, and women in particular, to self-empower, to empower themselves, coming through the door of health in this combination of leadership and personal growth and spirituality, mind, body, and spirit. So I'm looking forward to this week and this call. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you, Jessica, for organizing.
Absolutely. Gorgeous, Valencia. I'm so happy that you and Vera are part of this project, because I could see the two of you being, power partners coming from the lens of health. I will say, before Cindy and Dorothy Inez introduce themselves, that I gathered these women here because all of these women and the other women who are part of this project have all come from they all have very different businesses and very different careers and life paths, but all of them have created incredible, inspiring lives of wealth or leadership or both. And so, yeah, it's just lovely to highlight you here. Cindy, let's have you go next.
Good morning. Thrilled to be here. Yeah, and so I feel like a unicorn at times. I have been an entrepreneur for only 6 years. So I left my job 6 years ago, just like a few weeks ago. And so I have a very strong corporate background. And so a lot like Valencia, you shared, right? That pushing, that striving, a very masculine leadership success model. And then I left that to create a business. And I'm in business with my husband, which is a true blessing. And we are in the business of sales. So again, I step into this realm that's, nobody looks at sales and goes, "Yay, sales!" Right? It's masculine, doesn't have the best reputation, and yet I love it. I realize, like you, Valencia, too, like everything in my life, my corporate life, led me to be in business with my husband, to bring my leadership, my structure, into our business. And what I learned early on, though, in that transition was that masculine side, that pushing and striving and grasping was not going to sustain. And it was not going to help us grow our business. So it was really early on finding the right mentors. Kimberly was one of them. I worked with her for years in learning how to create the capacity to hold the energy, because my husband's big energy. Sales is big energy. My clients are big energy. And I have to hold that. So how do I, as a female, be that strong and that big of a container while also nurturing and taking care of myself? And that had to come first. And so that's the work. That's the work every day, every week as we move through. So I'm thrilled to be here as a woman that's successful, as a woman of color, as a woman that's come out that made transitions. I just made one yesterday in going silver. It never ends. And I think that's exciting to be a woman in business and create the life that we desire. So thank you, Jessica.
Oh, thank you, Cindy. Gorgeous. Dorothy Inez. For those of you that are just joining us, we're just doing introductions, and then we're going to dive into our panel topics in just a moment.
Hey everyone, my name is Dorothy Inez. Del Tufo is my last name. Dorothy Inez is actually my first name. And I am a confidence expert. I started out in image and beauty consulting 10 years ago. I kind of had a transition like Cindy, and then the other women on here at the age of 40, which was actually 13 years ago. I decided to leave my corporate work and go into what I felt God was calling me to. And then once I finished, I recently graduated with my master's, that's when I became the confidence expert. I transitioned out of beauty and image. It's still a part of what I do, but confidence came in when I did my thesis work on the confidence in women entrepreneurs. I work with women who consider themselves confident. That's probably many of us here online watching. And it's as we're going through, going to that next level. I say each level, new devil, because we're confident where we are. But when it's time to up level and move to that next, that next evolution of ourselves, our confidence is challenged. And those are the types of women I love working with. I live here in Minneapolis. I have 2 little dogs. You can hear them barking in the background maybe. And I'm a huge Prince fan. So I'm here at the mothership.
Thank you so much, Dorothy Inez. Welcome, welcome. So let's go ahead. You're welcome. We're going to go ahead and dive in. Basically, we each day that we're coming together, we have these delicious topics that we're going to dive into. And we all 15 of us came together at the beginning of this project, and we all co-created the topics that we thought were most meaningful for us, and most meaningful for you, the participants. And so our topics for today, one is how, kind of the theme of today is self-care, self-love, and wealth mindsets. And some of the subtopics are how financial security is tied to the mindsets of liberation and freedom. So we're going to talk about that first. And how to decompress from burnout. Like Vera says, even when shit hits the fan, because that's a huge, huge piece of us being in prosperity and leadership and just moving through the world as creators, as powerful women. And then the final topic is shifting your beliefs, shifting our beliefs around our glass ceiling, around our potential, hugely important for women because we're all in that conversation. So the first one is really just talking about liberation and freedom mindsets. And so I would love to just hear from any one of you that want to share. You could all share, take a little bit of time to go into this particular rabbit hole and just talk about your own interpretation or your own experiences of the freedom or liberation mindsets, like what that means to each of you. So I'd love to get your perspective. If you do want to tie it into financial security, great. But let's just open up the liberation and freedom mindset rabbit hole. And you can just kind of unmute yourself, and I'm just going to let the conversation be organic.
I'll talk first. I didn't know how we're going to do, so I'm raising my hand to talk. So for me, I will say where true liberation has come from for me is in my spiritual identity. I don't know how many women listening have sat here and compared yourselves to other people. For me, I was comparing myself to other people constantly. My father, even to this day, does not believe in me and the things that I do. He has a certain way that my life should be, trying to live up to his expectations and the expectations of others put a lot of stress on me. Even having coaches who believed that, with my gifts and talents, you should be doing this and that rather than trusting myself. And so it wasn't until I did that deep dive and I learned to hear that inner wisdom within me and really became so connected to Holy Spirit that I truly have you know, become what I feel, and even my group is called the Liberated Lifestyle Collective, because it was a moment of liberation when I had that awakening to who I really am, and that everything I need to know doesn't need to come from the outside, but from the inside, from the one who created me.
That's gorgeous. I can resonate in my own experience of when I'm really connected to my self-care practices and also my spiritual practices. It not only has direct impact on my physiology, like literally the chemicals my body is producing, whether those are stress hormones or relaxation hormones, but when I'm engaging in the activities that has my body in that more relaxed state, that's often where I receive my best business ideas. It's where I am most easily able to connect to gratitude, which is magnetic. I really appreciate you bringing the spiritual into this conversation. Let's hear from someone else. You can just unmute yourself and share.
I'll go next. Hey, Jessica. Yeah, so I'm always going to be bringing it back to the frequency and vibrational piece. That's what I'm an expert in. I have a gift of being able to measure vibrational frequencies. And so that's been the biggest shift for me, is once I learned how to measure these frequencies, I could measure. There's two really important parts of opening our financial prosperity. So one is being able to measure the vibration of your money. How high is your vibration? You know, we can have other people's beliefs and programs in our money. I call it our money pile. And this is what can bring our money vibration low. So it doesn't really matter, so much the mindsets. We can think about prosperity and talk about and say all these affirmations all day long. But at the end of the day, if we have a low money vibration, that's what we're going to keep manifesting. And then the second part of the financial piece is what I call the wealth container. So that has to do with how much of anything we can have, whether it's money, love, friends, shoes. And so this container, if it's the size of a thimble, we could win the lottery tomorrow, but it's going to all go out the back door. And with all kinds of, reasons that, are going to need a root canal, and the dog has to go to the vet, and, people want to borrow money. And before you know it, it's all gone, because there's no place to hold this vibrational frequency that we just brought in. So there's lots of pieces to this, and it's much more than mindset. Being able to allow the flow of money through various channels to be able not only to give out into the world, but to actually receive through our energy channels. There's a lot of pieces to this, but I'm always going to bring it back to that vibrational frequency. In those higher vibrations, that's where the high vibrational money mindsets exist. So keeping those vibrations high.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
And even I think about, in the body physically, like what do we feel when we're feeling abundant? We feel like you're walking on air. You feel like there's nothing that you can do wrong. Your confidence is high. You can accomplish anything. But how do you shift your mindset, what's happening in your environment, to what's happening inside of you, physically and physiologically? And so the thing is, when your mindset is small, it reflects in your ability for your hormones even to show up big, right? Because the environment and how it interacts with us plays into how our body responds emotionally, physically, and hormonally. The actual hormonal expression changes when our mindset is smaller, because we're, energetically, we're not operating at a much higher level, right? And your body will, in its infinite wisdom, try to perform as much as it can, but how long will it continue at a low rate, at a low frequency? So a lot of times when women come in, or even experiencing, because I've experienced burnout several times, 2 careers, right? My previous career as a project manager, and then this career, I'm faced with holding energy for people on a day-to-day basis that, have seen multiple different practitioners and, can't figure out what's happening. And so you have to go outside of the box and look at what's the environment like? What is your mindset? What are you doing with your social environment, your social health, your financial health, the way that you keep your room, the way that you keep your email box? All of that is tied into how your emotions and how your hormones express themselves. And so you can actually see this physically on blood work. The body will try to respond to it. And if it can't at a certain point in time, this is when we experience burnout. This is when we experience crashing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Vera.
Yeah.
So I'll go next.
Yeah.
So I want to start with the ideal, as you were talking about, Jessica, of freedom and liberation. For me, everything in my life I've finally figured out is going to come from who you think you be. And so if you start from that place as a place to grow from, because as many women on this call has already mentioned, there are voices outside of us telling us who we are, how to think, what we should do, who we be, etc. That's going to have a bearing on your health, on your choices, what you think you can be, do, or have. So I just want to first say that journey, which is an ongoing process because we are going through a spiral of growth, the next level and the next level and the next level. I don't think we ever arrive, but there is this unfolding of the beauty and magnificence of who we really are. And when we can come into that place, that involves our mindset, how we think. It involves our emotion, how we vibe, how we feel. So we are saying many of the same things, just using different words. But I find that one of the things that is really freeing is making friends with your feelings. And what I mean by that is we are literally trained to fear our feelings. And it's that low vibration that is creating chronic disease, anxiety, distress of all sorts. And it buries our joy, the essence of who we really are, that big ass self underneath this external fear. Fear for me, it was an acronym I created many years ago, was fictitious evidence affecting reality. It's the story of who we think we are, but at the same time, it's who we think we are, that story. In scientific terms, it's called autobiographical memory. It's literally a scientific neuroscience term. So we are creating our story, how much we think we can be, do or have, our wealth, and literally affects our health. Because when we are carrying these fears, and I'm not good enough, and I'm comparing myself, and I can't have this, that, and the other, we don't even take care of ourselves. So we will drive ourselves constantly trying to prove and show the world that I am good enough, I be enough, and I've been down that trap. Okay, and proving mommy, daddy wrong, friends, family, whatever it be. And that is still coming from this place of not knowing of who you really are and that connection to spirit. And so as I connected at the heart level and in my bones that I'm good enough because I breathe because of that spiritual connection, then I can continue to evolve from there. And yes, the science gives me knowledge and learning techniques and working with people and coming from that authentic place. But that liberation began on the inside out. And I think that that's one thing we have to become aware of, because our society continuously 24/7 seeks to draw us outside of ourselves and defining ourselves by our degrees or money or whatever it is. But when you can do that, then freedom really starts. So that's what I would say, and ditto to everything else that's been said as well.
That was gorgeous, Valencia Ray. Thanks for just kind of tying it all together.
Yeah, and for me, on just like, again, everything that everybody said, I think, I do, I be, I embody that, and I'm really pragmatic. I'm just a real practical woman. So it's that frequency first. I've really lived by that as I left corporate world. Like, how do I want to be in this world? How do I want to show up? And as I look back at my life and realize I took like a lot of and make big decisions really radically, I realized that I have a level of intuition and trust with myself, but I was unaware of it before I left corporate. I didn't even realize I had this deep connection to God and to spirit, and that he was truly leading me, and that I could just tap in and make radical decisions. And I realized what a gift that is. But it is also a gift that has to be honed and refined and tapped into every single day. And so that's the work for me, is every morning just tapping into that frequency, connecting with God, with spirit, becoming an open vessel, and then realizing like that is so necessary in every aspect of my business. Like as business women and leaders and moms and wise women, we make choices all the time, and people are looking to us for what we say and how we be. And I've just learned, that when I have that really strong ritual and devotion to my practice in the morning, I make really good decisions all day because I can feel them. And like everybody's talked about how your body, how you can just, and then I've learned to trust it. Like if I get that funky little feeling in my belly or a little twitch right here or something, I'm like, okay, I've got to let that process. And that's been really, it's been really interesting, even in sales, right? I mean, sales is just a conversation. I'm there to be of service and offer the most profound solution possible. And if I'm not present and I'm not an open channel and clear, nobody wins.
Mm-hmm.
And, so it's all of that. It's the frequency, it's the trust, it's the connection, and then making sure it's, for me, that there's a system and it's practical and it's showing up throughout the course of the day.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah. Great.
And I think, what I'm hearing repeatedly are these instances of us having these big transition points in our life, right? Like there was an event that happened, or the decision to, leave corporate or to leave the safety net. And I'm curious to hear, what was that impetus for? Sorry, Jessica, but as it came up,
great.
I was just wondering, like, what came up for you ladies when you decided to make that decision to transition? Because what I find in dealing with health, it's that same level of like motivation and gumption, right? To quit a job as it is to stop eating dairy or to stop eating sugar, right? Some people feel like it's harder. But so I'm wondering, what do you guys, where do you find that, or what was the impetus, the motivation for you to make the switch? Was it something in particular? Was it a series of things that happened? I'll just say for me, it was literally like a physical crash and burn. And then it was the mindset of, or the thought of, what am I doing with my time and my energy that's causing this feeling in my body? And is it something that I want to continue? And I knew it was either me or the job. I had to pick between the two. And if I didn't decide to move into my passion, which is medicine, I feel like I would have suffered and died.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was thinking, am I doing something that I love on a day-to-day basis? Right? And for, women who are moms, we sacrifice for the kids, right? And that's the impetus for the decision. But for the decision to make choices about whether you eat fully in the morning, or whether you do exercise, or whether, you choose to enact self-care, or do you choose to chase after the kids and run their schedule for the day? There is a choice every day. And I find just at that time period for me, it was, do I choose what I love to do or not? I'd love to hear what everyone else has to.
Thank you. That's gorgeous.
I'll speak to that, Jessica. For me, it was bankruptcy back in when the big economic meltdown. Had a retail flooring store at the time, and had sort of left all my healing arts behind to pursue this retail flooring store. And then in 2008, 2009, everything imploded. And so this is where, for me, the big journey inward. It had already started, but I really loved what Valencia was talking about, how, this financial piece, everyone is on the going outward to try and go and get the money.
Mm-hmm.
The money is just a reflection of what's this inward. So for me, that bankruptcy is what created the inward journey to discover why some thrive and why others just always struggle. And that's when I discovered being able to measure vibrational frequencies with money and so forth. But it's an inward journey completely.
I'll piggyback on this. I really appreciate this question, Vera. My experience was in my early 30s being, I was experiencing chronic illness, stress-related chronic illness, adrenal fatigue, which turned into autoimmune, which turned into having shingles 12 times. And because of that, I was debilitated with chronic pain and on food stamps because I couldn't work, and I depleted all of my resources, etc., because it was going on for years. And in that space of literally being at like my rock bottom, like food stamps, chronic pain, still like in the deepest part of my illness, everything that was said here today really resonates with me, because I had to, like Kimberly said, go inward and on one hand, dedicate my entire life to following pleasure, to following like Vera was saying this too, like, does this bring me joy? Does this exact activity bring me joy and physical comfort and pleasure in my body? And just kind of retraining my body to produce relaxation hormones, because it's easy to just get like in a stress spiral, right? And so just kind of retraining my nervous system, really giving myself permission to follow the yum. And there was also a really great unspooling of all of the programming and cultural conditioning about being a woman, doing for others first, what I'm capable of in terms of my ability to even have value, let alone stand in my value, let alone ask for money. There was a huge kind of reconstruction, rebuilding from a place of like yum and pleasure and just bringing myself joy, and having that be like the first thread that I could grab onto that allowed me to come out of chronic illness and food stamps and build a successful business. But at the same time, it was like a phoenix rising out of the ashes. There was like the falling away and the really willingness to really look at how I had been programmed as a woman, because I was raised that I would just get married and be taken care of. And when that didn't happen, it was like, oh, I have to make my own money? Oh, how do I do that? I don't know. Let alone all of the conditioning that we receive being, Black or brown girls. So yeah, that was my kind of rock bottom that had me follow that thread. And I feel like I'm still, even now, I will bump up against these things and I'm like, oh my gosh, there are more layers of like all the cultural stuff about what it is to be a woman or a woman leader or a woman, standing in her value. So I just wanted to totally name, I'm definitely still, I've come a long way. I'm still in process. I think as women right now, we are all in this big, like, birthing pains of learning how to be in leadership and how to create our wealth, even if we've already made great strides in that direction, because this is the first time in thousands of years that we've collectively been able to. So yeah, my freedom mindset was really based around, how does it feel? Does this bring me joy? Does this bring me pleasure? That like mental freedom leading to the positive ripple effect that's happened in my life.
I wanted to comment as well. For me, it came, and it's not until Kimberly brought it up that I realized it was money generated, but I didn't see it that way at the time until now. But I was working in corporate, Vera, and I found out that a young man that was 10 years younger than me was making $7,000 a year more than I was. And I took it to HR, and they were like, they weren't going to do anything. And it made me reflect upon a video that I would show. I would show all of my team members from Les Brown called "This Is Your Decade." And Les Brown talked about the graveyard being the richest place on the planet because so many people die with their dreams, their inventions inside of them. And he said to not live that which you were called to do and be in life was literally spiritual suicide. And I took that to heart because, here I was 40 years old, and I wanted to be a Hollywood professional makeup artist, and I'm too old to do that. But he gave me that talk I'd been playing for 10 years for other people. I finally heard it for myself, and I had the courage to take that journey, went to makeup school, and I did become that Hollywood trained expert in makeup. And that's what started my journey. And I didn't let my age be something that hindered me, because a lot of women won't start. I hear it all the time because I work with women. I'm too old. I can't do that. And the truth is you can, when you put your mind to it, when you know that's your soul's calling. Because for me, everything goes back to that spiritual piece. For me, I don't want to leave this life and go before God, and what I always tell people, with an empty basket, because my life is an offering to God. I'm here to help as many women as I can, and that's my driver, that's my why, and that's why I personally stepped out to do what I believe my soul was called to do here.
Thank you. Let's get a couple more shares before we switch gears to our next topic. Just any other shares around wealth mindset or freedom mindset, and especially if that ties to your own raw, real story.
So I'd like to share, and that's actually what I had in mind that I would do in terms of financial and burnout, and also the other area about the glass ceiling. And it completely ties into my journey, in that my turning point was a long lifetime kind of situation, in that just as a child, I had this mindset for a lot of reasons. Some of it I think is just purpose. I was to learn certain things so I could share. And some of it was in the environment. I have 4 brothers, and didn't have the greatest relationships, and et cetera, with the family system. So I started out feeling something was wrong with me, and learning how to hide out and look brave and go out there and take care of myself, because I felt like psychologically I had to. And really, like, I never had an issue around glass ceiling as it relates to color of skin and race, because fortunately that's one thing my family system did right for me, was to help me to just know that no race is better than me. So I didn't have that issue. But as a woman, that's where I had the issue, because I had a lot of misogynistic thinking in my family and in my religion. So I had all of these psychological barriers. I was more of an artist child, believe it or not. I liked science, but music and art was where I started. And then I took this dive off into medical school. And frankly, why did I do that? This ties into everything. I had this inner knowing that I wanted to learn how to be empowered, and I wanted to share that. And I knew at an early age I was going to have to go through the school of hard knocks. Fortunately, I figured that out so that I didn't jump off a bridge somewhere. And I had to navigate. And frankly, my mindset was such that I created this autobiographical story that it was me against the world. So it was really not as bad when I look back in terms of the outside, the family system, as much as I said to myself that limited me. And I think we do that a lot. We create these stories of not good enough and something's wrong with me, and it can be race, and it can be financial, and it can be whatever. So as I went through that, frankly, after going through the iterations of being yang, like scary yang, yang meaning masculine or et cetera, I gradually realized that, wow, there is a hole in my heart. I completely left my pleasure and fun and art, and I was all about the drive. And I actually started, because of some turning points in my life, some big turning points, started to go after listening to my intuition again. And I strongly started hearing that my body was helping me go through the grind, but if I didn't stop it, I was going to get sick. And then I talked to this intuitive person who happened to just say the same thing around the same time. And so that was a turning point, certainly. And I started to pull out, and magic happened where someone showed up to buy my practice, and I was on to the next thing, thinking that now I would go through this journey. But I just want to pause and say that when you are of service and you have this sense of purpose, you can run into a bunch of stumbling blocks as part of your journey to get here. And getting here now has meant that a lot of the symptoms I was starting to get, I've learned how to deal with them. I'm going out to share them. But I do want to just say, in a nutshell, that when you slow down, and as Jessica said, to find what your voice is, have pleasure, take care of yourself, there is that journey of health, and it's mixed in with this whole self-awareness and growth. And your financial picture has to, if you're going to keep it, because I had lots of money, lose it, lots of money, lose it, until I slowed down and got in touch with who I really am and started shedding those stories. And I think it's an ongoing process. Mm-hmm. So, I can tell lots of health and healing stories of myself or family and et cetera, but I think the bottom line is heart and emotion and mind is driving so much of this, and we tend to ignore and forget that. We go and look for the next 7-step system instead of dealing with ourselves. And that has been harder than being a doctor for me in these last few years, but I'm finally here, yay. and I continue to grow.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll say one final thing about this. This is maybe in my 20s, was connecting with someone who I really kind of looked up to as a mentor. And they said, Jessica, you're making the mistake of believing your thoughts. Because I was in like we were saying, an autobiographical story. And I don't remember if it was about me or if it was about someone else. But I think there's some piece, a thread in what a lot of you ladies have spoken to today about kind of catching that place where we either go into evaluation, which is another way of just saying judgment of self or others, where we go into criticism, where we go into better than, less than, like all of that evaluations that we do maybe 1,000 times a day. And we get caught into these spirals, and to kind of catch that and to create space between ourselves, our heart, our values, to create space between ourselves and our thoughts or the constructs of our minds. And it sounds like that's been kind of a first step or a first piece in what I'm hearing being shared here today. Gorgeous. We'll have time to circle back to kind of final thoughts about this. So, feel free to bring your voice back into the wealth mindset conversation again, ladies. But we want to talk a little bit. Partially because both Valencia and Dr. Vera are here, we decided to do a whole topic today, which is simply, or not so simply, how to decompress from burnout, even when shit hits the fan. Because burnout, whether it's just because of the political and societal times we live in, or if it's because of our workload or our kids or like all the busyness of life, every single woman is having a direct experience with, or has had, or will have a direct experience probably many times throughout her life with burnout. And it can be, as some of the stories have shared today, it can be debilitating, but it can also just be something that we can all learn to dance with more gracefully, to create more space and to cultivate more capacity in our lives. So I wanted to just open it up. Feel free to unmute yourself. Feel free to keep yourself unmuted so this, we can converse around this one, because I know it's big. But let's go ahead and open it up. How to decompress from burnout.
I'll go. Hey, Jessica. So, I think one of the first places where people want to decompress is going inward, which is super important, that inward self-nurturing, self-care. But there is one thing that is interesting about meditation that a lot of people do is, and they don't realize it, is they go in to meditate, but then they go and leave their bodies. And they're just barely, attached by a thread. And they feel great because they're not in their body. They're not connected to all the pain and all the struggle that they are experiencing in their life. And then they might just come in part way and then function in life again until they go and meditate like that again. And, I'm much more of an advocate of the kind of meditation that deeply connects you to your body, to the earth, to our Mother Earth, and to pure source energy, so that we can really embody and know what's going on in our bodies. This tuning fork is always informing us. It's always letting us know where we are in time and space, and how to navigate that. Unless we are really 100% connected to our bodies, we're not going to know what's going on. But I do want to back up and just mention the 3 things that I believe are major contributors to burnout. And most women are, if they're not at that burnout stage, they're sort of just struggling to stay above that threshold where they're about to burn out. And that's not really thriving. That's just kind of surviving. And so the 3 things that I believe are big contributors are: 1, operating in too much of the martyr. This is an energy that can be measured. It's that hardworking, struggling, thinking we have to suffer, put ourselves last on the list kind of energy. And it has a lot of proving, outward, pushing, chasing energy. And that sort of feeds into the second one, which is where women are not balanced in their masculine and feminine energy. So they're way overboard in the masculine, and not in, which is the masculine. We need that. We need the masculine energy to get stuff done. It's all about the mind, helps us to create structures and logic, and it's that outward energy. But it's not balanced with the feminine energy, which is all about the heart, going inward, taking care of ourselves, being collaborative. Mm-hmm. So that imbalance is going to create also burnout. Again, both of these can be measured. And then the third one is where women are operating in far too much anger. Now, because I can measure this, I discovered that most people are at about 50% angry energy. Now, you're not going to feel anger or angry in that 50%, but you're likely to feel very frustrated, easily annoyed, self-judgmental, judgmental of others, and it's really hard on the nervous system. And then there's a whole nother group of women that are operating in much higher levels of anger, and then they disguise it as passion, which it's not, and it's not sustainable. And so this is, and so the anger can also be measured. So when all of these are brought to stasis, martyr is at 0, anger is at 0. And that doesn't mean you can't ever get angry. Our anger is always available. We're just not lugging it around, having it be really hard on our nervous system. But when all of these are at 0, and the feminine energy is at 100%, along with the masculine energy 100%, we're not even going to be interested in doing anything hard. We won't have to not, you know, we're not going to be trying to not do it hard. We won't even go there. And so that's the beauty of being able to measure these things and then being able to work with it energetically to know that it's all the way at zero, so that we don't have to wonder, you know, do I have a fever or not? Well, go get the thermometer and then you'll know. So that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, so I'm going to approach it also with some medical side, you know, to stress. I didn't even know until I came to functional medicine, and I've been a doctor for more than 30 years. Yikes. And I did not know what a stress curve looked like, because they don't do that in the regular system. I did not know anything really when it came to it. So there's a piece around understanding what is stress. First of all, it's not the scary pictures on the internet of people pulling their hair out and going crazy. I mean, most people are stressed right now, truth be told, even if they have a smile on their face. And so understanding, though, that stress is actually the root cause of 90 to 95% of disease helps us to begin to put it into context. Because if we think it's okay to stay up late on our devices, not go to bed on time, operate. I used to take pride. I operated off of 4 hours of sleep. Yikes. Probably aged myself a lot during that period. When we don't take the time to, number one, mindfully be in our bodies, you know, as Kimberly just said, meditation is not about escaping. It's not a spiritual bypass and being so heavenly bound you're no earthly good. It's about being in our bodies. And that takes learning techniques to deal with that emotion that's stashed in there, all that anger and smile on the face. And I've had conversations where people were literally yelling and turning flushed and saying, I don't get angry. Okay, so we're out of touch with our emotions, and we shame some of them. So the techniques, some of the things I did, because I was one of them. Everything I talk about, I've been there, but pretty much, is that I learned things like the mindfulness meditation was the first beginning to help me to recognize my thoughts, to see myself separate from thoughts, and to begin to realize I wasn't my thought. Thought was a thought. I used something called tapping, or EFT. You've heard of that, right?
Yeah.
20 years ago. It's been around probably 40 years, but people are just now starting to really catch on to it. But it is a way to diffuse and let out some of that anger and anxiety and frustration without it just totally overwhelming you. That helps. Learning about what your adrenal condition really is, and learning about many of our behaviors and lifestyles that are actually causing stress, like eating sugar, drinking too much alcohol. Our processed foods are a disaster for the most part. I could say a whole conversation about that, but that in and of itself, between the sleep, between the sugar, between the bad food causing inflammation and the lack of sleep and the toxins, oh my gosh, I'm actually getting mercury out of my system right now. I just did a repeat test this year, and boom. Now, in the regular system, you won't even get a heavy metals test. And when you get that inflammation going from heavy metals, that's enough to throw off your adrenals and put you in the stress. So at the end of the day, it's a combination of literal mind, body, spiritual practices. And it's something that you find your best starting place. You know, there's the exercise, sleep, etc. But just realize that it is a journey, and it is a conscious intention. You have to develop skills. It doesn't just randomly, magically happen, is what I would say about it. And it's really important. Oh boy, is it important.
Thank you, Valencia. Yeah, I'd love to hear from Cindy and Dorothy Inez, and then finally from Dr. Vera.
Yeah, so a lot what Valencia, you were just talking about, some of my notes, and listening to everybody and my own experience. And when I left corporate 6 years ago, I didn't even realize and understand masculine and feminine energy, like no clue. I'm like, well, I'm a woman, I'm female. And then I learned quickly that I was basically a male in a woman's body. Like I was highly, I run a lot of masculine energy. It's comfortable for me. I've grown up that way. I get shit done. It served me well. And, but with mentorship, I realized like, it's not sustainable. And so I've really developed just really rich, devoted morning practice. And at one point it was like 4 or 5 hours long. I mean, I just didn't even get to my office till 11 o'clock. And, you know, I mean, it was phenomenal. And, but then things change, right? My business changes, my life changes, my children are growing and changing. We got marriages, we got grandbabies, we have like life changes. And what I've learned is, and our business has different iterations, is that it was important for me to realize that I wasn't sacrificing my self-care, or I wasn't being a failure, or I wasn't taking shortcuts if I intentionally chose to do something different for a day, for a week, for a month. I really learned, again, just going back to trusting myself. You know, I read scripture almost every day. Like, I love it, but there's some days that I'm led to read a business book. And I'm like, really? Okay. And I read my business book and it's exactly what I needed for that day. Or, you know, it's yoga versus weights. It's outdoor versus going to the gym. I mean, these are just simple choices, but it's all about the yumminess. Like you say, Jessica, I don't use that word a lot, but I like when I hear it from you. I'm like, yeah, I could use more yumminess. What if I put that frame around my decisions? And it's an ongoing. So, I mean, I love self-care. I value myself. I do put myself first. People might think I'm selfish if you look at my life from the outside. And then, you know, to your point, you know, you shared, Jessica, you got shingles 12 times. I got shingles once, and it was last year, and it shocked the shit out of me. I was like, how could I am so not the poster child for shingles. I was freaking out. And I caught it with like the tiniest little dot too, because I'm just in tune to my body. And, but I was like, this cannot be happening. And so then just to like, again, not be mad at myself, or like, oh my gosh, I don't understand self-care, I've fallen off the wagon. It's like looking back at the past 90 days, oh, I was in some big transitions with my mom and my daughters and my business, and it just, that's how it surfaced. Yeah. And I'm so grateful I found it so early, like it was almost non-existent. And then just, yeah. So anybody listening, it's always having compassion for yourself first, and realizing we're all on a journey, and every day it's the work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think about, I'm looking forward to hearing from Dorothy Inez. It's interesting to think about what's coming through from all these conversations, how the path to leadership or prosperity, or I'll just say creation, because, you know, I'll just tie that in there, that it is like yoga, like meditation, like anything, that it is a practice or a series of practices. And it's interesting, I don't know if I ever thought about it in quite that way, in the way that I am in this moment. Leadership is a practice. It's a way of life that starts with self-care, regulating oneself. And same thing with prosperity. That's cool. I'm just naming what I'm like kind of verbally processing what I'm kind of, receiving from your wisdom. Thank you. Dorothy Inez.
I love this question because I love doing self-care. For me, I've learned to put myself first, because a lot of us, again, women, we're taught to put others first, and especially people who come from a real religious background, you're taught to put other people first and to put yourself second. But through my own spiritual journey, I learned that putting myself first is putting God first, because God lives in me, through me, as me. And so that really gave me that sense of freedom to always listen to what does Dorothy Inez need to show up as her best and highest self. So really being in tune with, because there's moments as an entrepreneur, you're in that hustle mode, and you get burnt out and you're tired, and it's okay to step back and say, you know what? I need to take care of me. And then that goes into the next thing, which is being able to say no. A lot of us feel like we're going to miss out. That FOMO is, I call it, it's an empowering no, and it's a spiritual practice. Even when you can do something, say no. Just to practice saying no and giving yourself that space to just breathe and to simply be. And then the third thing that I love doing, and this is the space that I'm in right now. If you follow me on Facebook, you see, heck, Dorothy Inez, she is out and about. And that is to socialize, to hang out, to dance, because that's how I get, stuck energy out, is through dancing and through being with other sisters and having those actual personal relationships, not only just talking via Zoom. Let's connect and let me touch you, let me feel you. And I'll say my bonus tip is I get a massage every week, every Thursday, 8 o'clock.
Nice. That's awesome. I wanted to just tie that piece into wealth practices, because I know, and I can't quote the research or the resource, but I feel like it's been published in multiple books, and I've heard multiple speeches where they say that your income is very much based on the kind of the median income of who you surround yourself with.
The top 5.
So there's this, is it top 5? Okay. So there's this piece around really, like, first and foremost, surrounding myself with people who lift me up and elevate me, people who are positive, and consciously weeding out relationships that bring me down energetically or otherwise. But then there's this other layer of, it doesn't necessarily have to be my social circle, but like consciously surrounding myself with other women leaders. And even if that brings up the discomfort of, sometimes that comparison, or, some of the mind chatter that just sometimes happens being in community or being in relation with. But it's been hugely powerful for me to surround myself first with people that nourish me, that there's just a nice, win-win. But then on a more kind of professional level, or just that, kind of in being in the path of growing my money, surrounding myself with other women who have created inspiring lives of wealth. And that by osmosis just kind of magically has lifted my own glass ceiling. So I just wanted to speak to that, dovetailing to what you were talking about, community. Really.
I just wanted to add real quick onto that, Jessica, because what you just said is what I realized since I'd been here in Minneapolis when I moved from LA. All I've been doing is only hanging around my clients. And so I felt like this in my finances, there was just this. But when I decided that, you know what, I'm not going back to LA, I'm staying here in Minneapolis, and I started building community and hanging around other high vibe women, I had my biggest month last month. Totally shifted how I showed up and how I felt inside. So that community piece and what you're sharing is so valuable to upping our vibration, to attracting in more wealth and abundance, not just financial, but abundance that comes from having those relationships too.
Awesome.
Thank you for sharing that.
Dr. Vera's been waiting and waiting. I know you have so much to say about decompressing from burnout, because this is the topic that you really threw in, is like, this topic needs to be part of this whole series. So thank you, Dr. Vera, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Yeah. Of everything that's been mentioned today, the one thing that I'll say has been incredible for me, as it's been the toughest journey, is enjoying the journey and all that comes with it. Mm-hmm. There's shame, there's anger, there's upset, there's low periods of confidence, there's just feeling like you want to give up. And the one thing that I would say, and then I see this in my clients a lot, where there's just period of surrender. And this is a period of acceptance of, I just don't feel right. I don't feel like myself and I have to do something. And oftentimes people just don't take the time, and I'm guilty of doing this even right now, even though I'm teaching other people how to avoid burnout. But it's stepping into that moment of, it's okay for me to not be perfect. It's okay for me to not feel good. It's okay for me to stay in the bed if that's what I need for today. And giving yourself that permission to be in that journey that's where the growth is. And quite honestly, it's taken me years to get this. Like literally, it's just unfolding now. I think 2020's energy is just, I don't know, doing something when unfolding and unpacking a lot of crap for a lot of people. But I feel like the journey that I've had along the way to be here and to service people in the way that I'm doing it, it's been rough. It's caused me to look at, what am I doing? Like, am I really showing up 100%? Or am I just half-stepping? And I had to be in a moment of, it's okay for me to not be 100%. It's just not going to happen today. And I recognize in that gave me, doing tapping, doing all of the meditation and yoga and stillness. Being still is probably the number one thing you can do for burnout. And just admitting that, no, I don't feel like it. But there is a moment of clarity that will happen in that stillness. And the other thing that I'll say is, if you don't feel great, just do something that you love. It could be going out for a walk, right? Kicking a pile of leaves. Right, I'm from the Midwest, and that's something that we used to do all the time. You see a big pile of leaves and you kick it around. But you can't really do that here. But something as simple as that, it doesn't have to be big, but just remembering the thing that brought you joy to begin with, right? To give you excitement. It could be something really small, hanging in your community of women that you love, spending time with your kid, or just being by yourself, having you time. I love Dorothy Inez. You massage every week. I'm like right with you. You have to do these things that really bring you passion and joy, and that will create the space for dropping off that FOMO, dropping off that sensation of, I just need to do something. I just need to do something. You don't need to do anything. And your body will make the space for you making the space. And it's when we don't make that, we're in this hamster wheel, that's when we get into trouble. So I would say the biggest thing that you can do for burnout is literally to not do anything.
I'll just piggyback on that just with one quick thought, is that if we were to do something, it may be to get help, because sometimes we're so used to trying to figure it out on ourselves. We do that thing, we always do. And really, if we're being leaders, we need our own mentors. I have a mentor because he helps pull me into even higher vibrations. And if we're expecting our clients to, hire us or whatever, like, well, who have we hired to help us get to our next level? So I just wanted to throw that in there, that we sometimes need to get help.
Thank you. Absolutely.
And I'll just add in too. Most people, when they come into my office and they've got these, very classic signs of burnout, it's been years, right? This is years in the making. Just like you said, normal faces walking around in the world like nothing is wrong, but they're carrying so much inside, right? So much anger and trauma and just disruption. And having someone to, whether it's a therapist or whether it's an acupuncturist or, whether it's an integrative doctor like myself that specializes in burnout, or just being in a community, do something, right? Do something, but also make the space to reflect and see what's not really happening right, and then take action.
Gorgeous. Thank you. We have just a few more minutes, and I just wanted to open it up for any final bits of wisdom that want to be said around, shifting beliefs, around our value or our self-worth or glass ceilings, which we touched on quite a bit earlier on, or if you have any practical wealth building tips, something that someone could just go and implement right away, just a just a practical tip or tool. I'd love to hear those bits of wisdom, and we'll be going deeper into actual money practices as we move through our week. But I just wanted to open it up. Any final shares, final bits of wisdom?
I'll just do a quick share. In the free offer that I'm offering, there's 3 really simple energetic tips that you can implement today that can help you release a lot of the worry that we carry. There's an energetic circle around our root chakra, which is at the base of our spine, that holds all of our worry, stress, anxiety, doubts, fear, uncertainty. And so in this chapter, it's just one chapter that explains, how to release all of that worry. It's very simple. And the simplicity should not diminish its effectiveness. Sometimes the most simple things are the most powerful. Mm-hmm. So there's that, and also how to open your channel of receiving. A lot of people are blaming other people for not giving to them. Mm-hmm. And I give you so much and I'm not getting anything back. And well, guess what? Look inside. Your receiving channel may not be open. So there's some really great practical tips in that free offer that you can implement today that can start helping to raise your money vibration. And I also have some really, I know we're not selling anything, but for those who were interested, for $7, it's what you could, spend on a fancy coffee. A really great mini course on how to raise your money vibrations, because so many people are struggling with these things. But anyway, they could private message me if they're interested in other things.
Gorgeous. Thank you.
Yeah, for me, it follows Kimberly. It's when I first entered entrepreneurship and I was going to build a business, I did invest heavily in mentors. And one of my most significant, and 2 significant, Kimberly's one of them, and another mentor I'm still working with after 4 years. And it was the mentor that supports me as a woman, as a spiritual being, right? Because we talked about that. Like, how do we maintain the energy and the container and the wealth consciousness that allows us to continue to grow and lead our lives and support our families and do all of that? And every day is a courageous act. Every day, women, we get up, and it's just courageous to believe.
Yes.
Every day that there could be more peace, that there could be more prosperity, that you're, and to move through and to not get muddled and mired in the physicality of the circumstances that we sit in, whether it's your bank account, your family dynamics, the political arena, the weather, whatever. That's the courage every day, is to rise above that. And that's the inner work. And it just spills over into every part of your business and your life. And my free offer is my sacred morning routine. It's something that I honed, 4 or 5 years ago. And it's very dear to me. I still live by it. And it's something that, I talked about it. It evolves. And so I encourage you to check it out and alter it and create your own beautiful, devoted morning. Thank you, Jessica. Today's been it's been juicy and so fun. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just say real quick before we complete here, and I want to hear from Vera and Valencia if you have any final thoughts. What Cindy and Kimberly are speaking to is that we are sending free gifts. Cindy, Kimberly, all the panelists have created incredible free gifts and resources around leadership, around empowerment, around wealth building, and you'll receive those in your inbox for those of you that are with us this week. So I just want to speak to that. But yeah, any other wealth building tips or thoughts about shifting beliefs? I also just want to recognize we're like officially at our time, but I'm going to keep us rolling for just a few more minutes. So feel free to trickle off when you need to, but we'll be here for just a few more.
I do have to go, Jessica. I'm time thing, but I do want to thank you so much for this opportunity and privilege, and I look forward to more of what's going to be coming through this week. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Okay.
Valencia, did you have something you wanted to say?
Just really briefly, in terms of closing remarks, I would say certainly that whole self-acceptance would be so critical to everything that was said here, because I don't think we're really aware of how who we be determines who we are in the world and what we do. We think that we can do ourselves into being, so to speak. And so that's just driving the need to be validated all the time, or just et cetera. And so for me, you can look at it two ways in terms of, if you look at it through the lens of science, that would mean getting acquainted with your right brain and your emotional body and your embodiment, and relaxing and joy and the parasympathetic and the slowing down and the being still. All of that, whether you realize it or not, can totally affect your financial, your relational, your health, and helping you to get clear enough to even know what you really want financially, or what you want to really do, etc. And then on the soul side, personally, my learning edge right now, I've been on this long journey of looking for the feminine and the divine for decades, but now it's really accelerating. And so I know in our culture that has to be intentional. You're not going to just randomly have it fall out the sky. So I would say to women that, leadership, bringing in that yin or that feminine and that whole arena of the power of presence and, emotional self-regulation and awareness, all of that is really something I want to continue to learn and explore, certainly, and it's already made huge differences in my life that I think we don't even have a conversation about. Women don't even think about it in terms of leadership enough. So that's just how I would like to end the conversation today, is to become more aware of even that spiritual, energetic side of what it means in terms of femininity. And it's not a female thing, it's an actual energy.
Thank you. Beautiful. Yeah, it seems like so much of what we've talked about today is kind of tying into this phrase feminine leadership, which is kind of, I think, this new wave of leadership, which is creating from a place of resting and receiving and relating versus going out in a more predatory way to make things happen. And we're all in this great learning of how to do that, how to be that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say,
all that together.
And like you're saying, it's finding that mix for you, the both and. Sometimes we do have to go and be more direct, but then that doesn't have to dominate.
Well, Vera, I wanted to just give you a final spot for any last thoughts. I have so appreciated everything you've brought to this conversation, Valencia and Vera, Kimberly, Cindy, and Dorothy Inez. So Vera, take it home.
Take it home. Yeah, Jessica, thank you so much. This was so valuable for me in many different ways, not just because, I get to share space and energy with all these heart-centered women, but that this project is really getting out a voice that's not typically heard. And so, one of the things, just to close up, is I'll say, I have something that I tell my patients to do every day, and that's just do a quick audit, do a check-in to see what's happening on a day-to-day basis, especially if you're not getting the results that you want in your body, or whether you're not getting the results that you want financially, or if you're not getting the response that you want from your partner, right? There's something that you're doing on a day-to-day basis that's causing your actions to perpetuate your result. So taking a look at, is there something that I need to do differently? Is there something, it could be thought pattern, it could be an actual action, it could be what you're reading, what you're watching, what you're putting in your mouth. All of these things contribute to the madness happening every day on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
And so if you want to break the chain, and this is probably the most difficult thing for people, is breaking the chain and finding the one or two things, because usually it's just one or two things that you need to do differently that will make a huge impact on stopping that repetitive behavior or the repetitive thought, or not feeling connected to yourself. It's always one or two things. And the thing is we think that it's this big complex of complicated, I got to do this and that, but it really comes down to one or two things. So I would invite you, busy women, to just take a moment, pause. This is a great time. December is a very inward, like yin time for reflection. It's cold and it's raining, so it kind of forces us to be, in closed spaces. But take this time to really do the reflection. There's a big energy shift happening around us, with the change of the year. And so take this time to really detox, right? Take a look at what's happening. Look at what you want for yourself in the next decade. Wow.
Yeah.
And claim it, right? But it starts with knowing what's happening right now in your life.
Gorgeous. Thank you so much, Vera, for just bringing it home. Yeah. Gorgeous.
And I should just add, in terms of my free, I'm giving away a free consultation for people that have been struggling with some symptoms of burnout or not feeling like themselves. And, as Kimberly said, if you want to reach out to talk to someone, boom, here's the invitation to do that. And this is something that I do for people on an everyday basis. Like I said, I get really complex cases, and I work in regenerating bodies, is either mentally or emotionally, physically, hormonally, to repair, right? And using holistic and natural methods. So here's a wonderful opportunity to pick up the phone, reach out to me. And this is what I do to serve. This is what I love in my life. I wouldn't do anything else. So yeah, absolutely.
Gorgeous. Beautiful. Thank you so much. We're going to complete our time today, but I just wanted to say again, thank you, Dr. Vera, Dr. Valencia, Kimberly, Cindy, Dorothy Inez. And thank you so much for the gifts and resources that you've offered the attendees. We'll continue to email those out to all of you and include them here with the video. And yeah, thank you so much for being part of this conversation, everybody who's come to listen. As was said earlier, this conversation is a conversation that needs to be had around our wealth, our leadership, our standing and our value, but also creating in new and exciting ways as women. In some ways, we are clearing out tired old paradigms. And then the other side of that is we kind of have a little bit of a clean slate. There is this aspect of excitement because we get to create our future, at least for ourselves, the way that we want to. And there's something really alive and spacious and exciting about that. So thank you for joining us in the journey. And we'll be back tomorrow and the next day and the next day, this entire week of wisdom from these incredible women of color around wealth and leadership. So gratitude, gratitude. Thank you so much for being here.
Take care, guys. Bye.